to the Most High God. Happy Sabbath. Alright, so today's class is titled Men. Man must rule the household. Okay? Man must rule the household. So the first thing we're going to do in this class is talk about understanding that in Israel, regardless of how you feel, it's anyone, every household, a man must rule his household righteously. Okay? That means under the commandments, under full leadership under God. Man must rule their household. They must lead their households. Okay? Now, in leading their household, they have to have a full understanding of the commandments, a full understanding of affliction, a full understanding of righteousness, and when things are going right and when things are going wrong, seem to be going wrong. Men have to have full understanding. So, first thing I'm gonna do to get started is get an example of. I wanna go talk about. I want to talk about Job. So let's get Job chapter 1. Get Job chapter 1. Understand, when a man rules his household, first thing he has to understand, one of the first things he has to understand is there will be trials. It's not going to always be easy. There's going to be trials, whether it be with your wife, your children, or even the house itself. Everything around you, your work, is always going to be trials. So, in order for a man to get through this, he needs understanding. A good place to get understanding from is Job. And that's just one example. So let's start off with Job chapter 1. Go ahead, read chapter 1. Start at 1.
Job chapter 1 verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and that feared God and eschewed evil.
So Job was a man who was perfect and upright, and he feared God and eschewed evil. It says eschewed evil, that means that he shunned evil. He didn't take no part in it. He hated evil. Go ahead.
And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters.
So Job had under Job was 7 sons, 3 daughters. So he had a family. He had a lot. That's a huge responsibility in itself. Taking care of children. 7. That many children, or even let alone raising up one child, is a huge responsibility. So men must fully understand this child's life. The way they turn out is in your hand. So you have to make the right decisions. You have to have full discernment of the scriptures and be ready to lead this child and lead multiple children. Go ahead.
His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, in very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east.
So Job was wealthy. Job was blessed with a multitude of things. And by today's standard, Job was considered. Job had money. Had a big house and plenty of animals. And we know that if you know anything about farming, you know that the more animals you have, the better. And that's how Job was a wealthy man. So Job was blessed. But to whom much is given, much is expected. So you think Job didn't ever consider that the Most High has given me so much? So that means I have a great task ahead of me in serving him. Keep that in mind, man. What the Most High has given you, you have to on your return, serve him. That's all he asks. But we have to serve him hard. We got to go hard for him. Go ahead.
And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them.
So his sons celebrated their birthdays. They celebrated their days. As we know, that's a sin to celebrate your days. Go ahead.
And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned, and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continue.
So, although Job was a righteous man, his children were his sons were not. His sons were not. And also understand this: if you do all you can to raise your child up, and they choose to still go the way of the world, there's nothing you can do about that. Sometimes sometimes that's just the way it goes. But we have to remain. Remember, Job still, even though his children were behaving wickedly, Job still himself stayed righteous. Let me get this real quick. Hold on. So we got to understand. It may be, sometimes it may be that even though you do all you can to raise your children upright, sometimes they just choose. Sometimes they just choose a wicked path. But as men of the household, it is our job to remain the course, stay the course. Rebuke your children. Constantly rebuke them. I'm trying to find it. Rejoice not in the multitude. Let's go ahead. I'll get it later. But I'm trying to look for a scripture that says, rejoice not in the multitude of children. Because sometimes it is that your children just may have to carry a different spirit than you. But you have to make sure you're doing your part and constantly just teaching them, raising them up right. Go ahead. Verse 5.
Verse 5. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that...
Verse 6.
Verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Do Job fear God for naught? Has not thou made an hedge about him and his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. So it says, well, Satan is a wicked spirit. Satan is a spirit. That spirit, when it come on, you remember we talk about the devil. When you have wickedness in your heart, when you have wickedness on your mind, you become the devil. That's what that spirit is. Satan is a spirit, a wicked spirit, and right now it's looking for somebody to destroy. It's always looking for somebody to destroy. The Most High say, how you consider Job? Job has to be tried, because when you are constantly just everything you touch constantly being blessed, your faith has to be tried, because we gotta see if you truly are a soldier, if you can withstand some tests, because everything he touched, everything he do, he's been successful, he's been succeeding. So now it's time to see, can he handle trying times? Skip down to verse 13, because what it's talking about is Job. Let's see how Job gets afflicted, because now that Most High is going to allow the spirit to attack Job, let's see how Job gets afflicted. Go ahead. Verse 13. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Sabians fell upon him, and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants in the edge of the sword. And I am only escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The Chaldeans made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away, yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword.
So, go ahead.
And I am only escaped alone to tell thee.
So basically, everything Job has, he's lost, including his children. But it's because they chose to do wickedly. Now, does that mean that because they chose to live wickedly, does that mean Job should fall apart? Does that mean that Job should fall apart? Jump over to chapter 2, read verse 9.
Job 2 verse 9. Then said his wife unto him, Do thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die.
So his wife, being that the wife is the weaker vessel, his wife, she's struggling. And everything they've been through, everything they've lost, she's starting to lose a little bit of faith. So she asked him, "How you still retain God? You still own this after all we done been through?" But look at what Job says to her. Go ahead.
But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil?
Understand, y'all. Trying times are going to come. He says you can. Truth is, you should rejoice. But the thing is, you can't lose faith. And that's important for the men, because if the man falls, the whole household falls. So men have to understand, you must rule your household even in this way, by keeping your faith, keeping the commandments. If the man is constantly doing for his household will not fall. Yes, Job lost all his animals and stuff. He lost his children. Also understand, they had their own houses too. So that wasn't Job's household. Job still had one thing. Not one thing, but Job had one person. That was his wife. Job still had his wife. So Job said, should we only expect good from God and not evil? No, you gotta expect evil too, because you're gonna be tried. If you constantly prospering, how you gonna know if you can take pain? How you gonna know if you can take a few trials? If everything is constantly going well for you, you're not gonna know. God not gonna know. God can't call you a soldier because you ain't been through nothing. So there's just a quick message at the beginning for the men. No matter what happens, we must stay strong. We must stay strong and rebuke wicked spirits when they come at you. Just like Christ rebuked Satan. Remember, Christ had been fasting 40 days. But Christ rebuked that spirit of that wicked spirit that tried to come on it. Oh, let's get into the other part of the lesson. The role of the wife. The man must rule the household. What is the role of the wife? Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 14. We're going to start at verse 34.
First Corinthians 14, verse 34. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted to them to speak.
Go ahead.
But they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for a woman to speak in the church.
So a woman is supposed to be in subjection to the husband, and she's supposed to be silent in the church. Because women are supposed to be silent and loving. Not saying that women can't speak, but understanding that when a man is leading his house righteously, follow him. Because a man who is doing everything by the scripture, doing everything righteously, you shouldn't have there should be no argument with him. So women are to be read 34 again.
1 Corinthians 14, verse 34. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law.
So women are commanded to be under obedience. So the role of wife is to be obedient. Go to 1 Timothy chapter 3, start verse 2. 1 Timothy chapter 2, sorry. 1 Timothy chapter 2. Start at verse 11.
1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11. Let the woman learn in silence with all
So the
subjection.
woman supposed to be learn in silence with all subjection. Maybe she should be fully submissive to her husband and ready to learn from him. So women should be in full submission to their husband and ready to learn from him. Go ahead.
But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
So read that again.
But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
So women are not supposed to have authority over the man. Women are not supposed to have authority over the man. Understand something. Any man living righteously, making sure he's doing right, he's not going to lead you down a path. He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to embarrass you. He ain't going to treat you bad. So, read that one more time.
But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
Women cannot usurp authority over the man. Be in silence. Be ready to hear. Listen to the man. Let him lead you. Go ahead.
For Adam was first formed, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing.
Read verse 13 again.
Verse 13. For Adam was first formed, then Eve.
So the man comes before the woman. Okay? The man is held to the man. The reason the women need to be in silence and subjection to their husband because the man comes first. Okay? The man is to come first. So that's it on that. Go to 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3, starting 1.
1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands.
So be in subjection to your own husband. Be in subjection to him and be ready to let him rule. Go ahead.
That if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives.
So you're supposed to be in full subjection to your husband. That if any sisters who are not keeping the commandments, who are not wearing their fringes, they basically ain't Israel. Let them be won by your conversation, won over by your conversation about your subjection to your husband, or just your conversation, period. Because in today's society, women don't respect men, and a lot of women that are married don't even respect their husbands. When they hear about this submissiveness or any of this, they think it's crazy that a woman will submit herself to a man. So the Israelite woman is supposed to show this in a positive, like submission to your husband in a positive light. When other women see y'all, they say, you know what? I heard these sisters talking. I seen the way they was carrying themselves, and I ain't gonna lie, the way they did it, just couldn't find nothing wrong with it. And even when I heard them speak about how they love their husbands, maybe kind of admire them. That's how women supposed to look at y'all. That's how the Israelite woman is supposed to be looked at. Go ahead.
Verse 2. While they behold your chaste conversations coupled with fear,
Go ahead.
whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of plaiting the hair, and of wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel.
Because that's another thing. It's not enough to dress like a righteous person, or to dress with gold and silver and long dresses. You know, dashikis and what do I see a lot of people doing? This is something that I notice when people consider themselves woke. I see a lot of sisters do this when they consider themselves woke. They start dressing like they're from Africa, and they consider that being woke. But do you have any knowledge? Like, do you have any understanding on the African culture? Has your spirit changed? Has the inner workings of your mind changed? No. When you're not gonna win nobody over just by the way you look, and you're gonna win a fool over that way, but not a person with some actual understanding or looking for real understanding. You want to win them over with wisdom. You want to win them over with that godly spirit. That spirit of that woman who understands, I am in subject to my husband because I fear God. And God put it this way. Go ahead.
But let it be the hidden man of the heart,
The spirit. Go ahead.
in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is the sight of God, of great price.
So the women's spirit is supposed to be meek and quiet. Yeah, well, go out. You see the women all loud and stuff, and some of them sound like men. I'll be in the store trying to buy something, and I hear the women in front of me talking. And they sound like dudes, and they talking from their chest. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing wrong with a little speaking up, but women, women are supposed to be quiet. Ain't nobody saying you're supposed to be weak, but you're supposed to have a presence about you that basically just glowing. Like you look like righteousness just oozing out of you. Quiet. Read that part again up.
Even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is the sight of God, of great price.
And in the sight of God, that's great price. So God says being quiet and meek is of a great price. What does that mean? You should strive to be that way. You should strive to be meek and quiet. That's beautiful. In all honesty, men love that too. Righteous men love that too. Like a woman who's not the loudest person in the street or in the store. Go ahead, verse 6.
Verse 6. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham.
I'm sorry, verse 5.
Verse 5. For after this manner in old time, the holy women also who trusted in God.
It says the holy women who also trusted in God. Remember that. The women trusted in God. Go ahead.
Adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands.
So that was how they adorned themselves, by being in subjection to their own husbands. That was what they showed, their subjection. They adorned themselves. They had on they probably had on nice apparel, gold, but that was not their full. That was not what they were used. That was not how they captured people. That wasn't how they.
Like that wasn't a full adorning.
That wasn't their full adorning. It was their full adorning was their fear for God and their love for their husband. Read that one more time.
1 Peter 3. Excuse me.
5.
Verse 5. For after this manner in old time, the holy women also who trusted in God.
The holy women who trusted in God. And what they're saying, if you can't grasp this and be this way, you don't trust in God. If you can't submit yourself to your husband, you don't trust in God. Your fear is not in God, and we got to correct that. Go ahead.
Adorn themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands.
So they adorn themselves by being in subjection to their husband. That's how they won over people who were in sin. That's how they adorn themselves. Go ahead.
Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord.
So Sarah obeyed Abraham and even called him Lord. You have sisters. If you go back to the beginning of this chapter, remember it said, let the women hear your people, those who are not keeping the commandments, those who are not living in faith, let them be won over by this. Read that part again, huh? That last one we was just there.
Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord.
They hear stuff like that. Women should hear stuff like that and y'all give them that full understanding on why you call your husband your Lord. That's how they should be won over. The women nowadays hear that. They're like, I'm not calling no man my Lord. I'm not calling. Lord means leader. Your husband is your leader. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you are a married woman and you have a man over you, that man is your Lord. He's the head of your household. To the unmarried sister, remember this. If y'all you want to get married, remember, you have to be in full subjection to that man you married. Go ahead.
Whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well,
Go ahead.
and are not afraid with any amazement.
This is who daughter. So as long as you dwell in the commandments, you are daughters of Sarah. And read that last part again. That you are daughters of Sarah, and Sarah obeyed Abraham, even calling him her Lord. And he said, "Be not afraid." Read that last part again.
Whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement.
So not afraid with any amazement. You're not thrown off by how submissive you have to be. If you got a good man, don't worry. You ain't gonna be out here looking crazy. He not gonna make you go outside with a bucket on your head and write shame on the back. just to teach you a lesson. No, but for real. So women should be ready to submit yourselves to your husband in full subjection. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. So in other words, women, conduct yourself in a righteous manner towards your husband. We want over, and so that other women may see and be won over by this, and not just your outer appearance. That's one job. Remember, our job as men is to look out for Israel as much as possible. And your job is that's a job for women too. So another way y'all can do that is by your conversation alone. Just by your righteousness alone. Remember, you ever notice when a woman is just carries herself right? Other women, now I'm not talking about I'm just saying other women look at her and they'll compliment her. They look at her and say, "Man, you just beautiful." I'm sorry, I gotta say it. You're beautiful. And they ask all kinds of questions. That's how you win them over. All right, let's go. Genesis chapter 3. Read verse 16.
Genesis 3 and 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee.
So your desire, women, should be to your husband, and your husband is to rule over you. Okay? Now, and we can't be afraid of that. Can't be afraid to let somebody rule over you. Because as men who were once in the world, we had to change our ways and come to the commandments and allow God to fully rule over us. So everybody in subjection. Nobody's bullying women, but it does have to be preached right, because there is a false doctrine going around in Israel where men believe that women are their slaves. Your wife is your slave, and that's just not true. She's not your slave. You're supposed to love her. Is that a good one? Be online. Let's get that. So men have to understand, because there's doctrine going around. There's a lot of false understanding what men believe, that you ain't gotta, that your wife is your slave. That your wife, get that Sirach 4 and verse 30. That your wife is to be treated any kind of way, badly, and that's just not true. Read that, Sirach 4 and 30.
Sirach chapter 4 verse 30. Be not as a lion in thy house, nor frantic among thy servants.
You're not supposed to be as a lion in your house. A lot of men believe, my wife, the women have to work, but I can stay at home and mess around all day. Even if you say be frantic, and it's talking about not even being frantic among your servants. You're supposed to be fair. You're supposed to be fair-minded, even with your servants and those of your household. Rule righteously, man. Rule with understanding and caring. That's how you rule. Not by being a lion. Not by barking orders, yelling at everybody, getting mad, cussing everybody out whenever and then think, well, I'm the man around here. It's I rule this. You do, but you gotta understand there's levels to it. It ain't just you ain't just the kingpin around here and just can treat everybody the way you want. That's not living righteously, and the Most High will afflict you for that. That's why we gotta get full understanding. So, go to Titus 2 and 5. So there's one more thing on the woman. So it says, Genesis 3:16 says, the wife's desire shall be to the husband, and he shall rule over her. With love, with understanding though, with the fear of God. You rule over your wife with the fear of God in mind first. So we read Titus 2 and 5. So yes, always to be remembered. The Most High said, don't be no lion, man. Don't be lions. Can't be lying. Gotta be fair. Go ahead.
Titus 2 verse 5. To be discreet.
So that's the role of the woman. And women must be discreet. Go ahead.
Chaste.
Go ahead.
Keepers at home.
Keepers at home. The women supposed to keep. The women's job is to keep the house in order. Keep the house clean. Feed the children. All that little stuff. Does that mean the man can't help do those things? No. That's why. What it means you have to rule with the fear of God. A man does not have to work his wife to death. A man can do the dishes. He can do the laundry. He can keep the house too. You can rule your house that way, but you have to just rule your house with the fear of God and understanding. But for the role of the woman, this is her role. Go ahead.
Keepers at home. Good. Obedient to her own husband.
So she's supposed to be good and obedient to her own husband. Go ahead.
That the word of God be not blasphemed.
That she does not blaspheme the word of God. She can't go. If she go against this, she's blaspheming the word of God. She's making the word of God a mockery. Women that cannot lead the household. The woman is not the head of the household. The man is the head of the household. But a righteous man is going to lead his household in a way where he knows a woman's strengths and her weaknesses. He knows his strengths and his weaknesses. He knows what she can deal with. He knows what he can deal with. That's how he'll rule his household. So let's go. Let's get into the role of the little ones, the children. Let's see what their role is in the house. Get Proverbs 22 and 6. The small fries. So, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6.
23 or 22?
My bad. 22. Proverbs 22 and verse 6.
Proverbs 22 verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go.
So, I want to dwell on this a little bit. Train up a child in the way he should go. Understand something, people. Children are like sponges, okay? I know this. I know we all know this. Children are like sponges, man. They adapt to their environment. The way you talk to them, the way you carry yourself, the way you make them view the world is the way they are going to go. Okay? I once had a conversation with a brother. I was talking to my son, and after he heard the way I talked to my son, he said he made a joke out of it, as if I was saying too much to my son. But that's not so. You gotta get them young. See, if you teach your child, it's something that people will have their children. They expose their children to things they shouldn't be exposed to. You know, they expose their children to things they shouldn't be exposed to, but don't think twice about how that's going to affect them. They let them watch anything on TV. They let them listen to music and hear all the words. They let them do these little crazy dances, and they think that that's okay. But if I'm talking to my son like in an educated way, trying to help him understand, no matter how young he is, that's the way he's gonna go. He's gonna be used to hearing somebody talk like that, and he's gonna talk like that. So we have to get this idea out of our mind that our children don't understand, because they do. They don't have a full understanding, but they hear what you're saying and they see what you're doing. And that's the way they're going to go. So if you want your child, if you want to change the course of your child's life, you have to be ready to raise them up in the fear of God. Read that again.
Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go.
It says, train up a child in the way he should go. That's your job. What I talked about earlier with Job, yeah, those children, they went their own way. That may happen, but do your job. Do your job. Because when the Most High asks you on that day, did you stick to the script? And you say, hey, it just wasn't working. What you think he gonna say to you? Look away from me. I never knew you. Because you didn't have that fear on you. You gave up. And you gave up on your child. We all love our children. And we want them to serve God. We want them to be more righteous than we are. That's what you want for them. You like if you raise them right, you like when they rebuke you when you do something off. You like that. It shows they go in the right direction. So it says, train up a child in the way you should go. So when you read that scripture, remember something. You train, whatever you do around this child, you are training him up in the way he should go. Whether that be you train him more righteously or wickedly, he's going the way you train him. He or she is going the way you train him. I never understood why people think it's cute for a little girl to twerk. Man. One more thing. Go ahead and read the scripture. Right?
Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
It says when he is old, he will not depart from it. Meaning it's always going to be on his spirit. That's what's going to bring him back if he decides to go off. He or she, that's what's going to bring them back. If they decide to go off. Train them up in the way they should go. And when they are old, they will not depart from it. They're going to always have that fear. They're going to always have that understanding. They're going to remember your words, your teachings. And they're going to have that fear of God on them. But also vice versa. If you train them up wickedly, that's the way they're going to go. Let's go to this. Hit something else. Hit Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. So keep in mind, when I come to the conclusion, what is the role of the child? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
So it says, ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Man, if you go when you raising them up, practice what you preach. Okay? Don't have to give them an excuse, a reason to say, well, you raised me to be this way. but you don't do it. You told me one thing, but you did another. I have personal experience with stuff like that. It will come back and bite you. It will. Raise your child up in the way they should go, and make sure you are a shining example. Make sure they can't say, when they get older, they should be like, man, my father or my mother and father, man, they raised me this way, and I appreciate it. And they have never once shown me any reason why I shouldn't. Read it again.
And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
And there's other angles on that. I'm provoking the wrath. Meaning, don't leave them. Don't leave them to themselves. Fathers, be there for your children. They need you. Raise your child up. Don't provoke them to wrath, because you know that anger of a hurt son because of his father is hard to get over. It's hard. When a father feels betrayed, when a son feels betrayed by his father, you got now he got a spirit on him that he can't shake. So there's again, fathers, don't provoke your. This is another role of the man actually in leadership. Don't provoke your your children to anger. Lead righteously, live righteously, teach them righteously, and you do the same. Go ahead. Was it in on that? Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. Let's get Colossians 3:21.
Colossians 3 verse 21. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged.
So this is why you don't provoke them to anger, because they may be discouraged. And that's what we're just talking about. They will be discouraged. You living one way and doing something a different way, they're gonna look at that and they could lose faith. But the Most High, He wants His children. He wants them. He wants His servants. And you out here being a stumbling block to your own child. What your example that you destroying your child and you blaspheming the Most High. Read it again, not one more time.
Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh.
Oh, that was it on that. I'm sorry. Now go to Deuteronomy 6 and 7.
Deuteronomy 6 and 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children.
Thou shalt teach the commandments diligently to your children. I mean, you're supposed to constantly drill these two commandments into your child's head. Go ahead.
And shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house.
When you sitting in your house just chilling, call them up. Be like, hey, sit down. Let me holler at you for a second. And just going over the commandments. When you go over them, you can be smooth about it. Sit around, talk to them. Give them examples. Use a commandment on them. Ask them questions about their day. Hit them with a scripture. Ask them how they, just talk to them. Be on them with these commandments. Because you won't. Going to college and all that stuff is great. But the greatest thing a child can do is serve God in their adulthood. That's the greatest thing they can do. Go ahead.
And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
It's all time you supposed to be teaching them. When you lying down, when you walking with them, walk around the block or something, walking up the street, talk with them. Be in their head. Really be on them, because we let everything else be on. You know, you got, like I said, don't leave them to themselves. Give them phone, like got them watching YouTube. They can stumble onto anything. They shouldn't. Social media shouldn't even be something they should be into. You shouldn't let me personally, I wouldn't let my child Facebook page until they got their own house. That's when you get a Facebook page. What you doing on Facebook? There's nothing on Facebook for you or me, for that matter. Use it. Them some really be on their music. If it scares you that much, just let them listen to Israelite music. I'm saying we gotta remember something. We often forget that the way we are is because of what we saw in our youth. You gotta change that pattern for your child. Look at your children and make them understand you have a clean slate. See, I got memories in my head that I have a hard time shaking. I got done things that I can't erase. You haven't and you don't. Really preach to them about that clean slate. You got a clean slate, you can keep it that way. So, I would say be diligent with them. Read that verse 7 one more time.
And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
Always be on them about it. I know my daughter Autumn, whenever she stumped her foot the other day, I said, that's affliction. You must have did something God didn't like. Just hit them. Be on them. Drill the word into their head. Hit Psalm 78. Psalm 78. We're talking about the role of the children. And God say, well, the role of children sound like what the parents really sound like the parents' role, right? There's a method to my madness. Psalm 78, read verse 4.
Psalm 78, verse 4. We will not hide them from their children.
Like I just said, train them up young. Just because they little don't mean they can't understand. This is the word of God we talking about. To make a simple man wise. It opens the eyes of the blind. You can let them hear everything else. Don't hide this from them just because they little, just because you think they can't. Be on them with it. Most I said train them up young in the way it should go. You can teach them everything else, but you think they're not going to understand you come with these scriptures at them? What you think they was made for? Israel is supposed to be righteous. Where do you think that starts? Start from youth. Go ahead.
We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord.
So it's supposed to be a generational thing. Understand something. We was once in sin, but now we're raising a whole generation of children who are being brought up in these commandments. That's a beautiful thing. They have a chance to not have that sin on them. And it'll be passed on from generation to generation. Go ahead.
And his strength and his wonderful works that he had done.
So you're supposed to tell your children of these things. Don't hide nothing from them. Read Exodus to them. Read all the scriptures. So they can know how powerful God is. So they can have that fear. Read that one more time, verse 4.
We will not hide them from their children, showing them to the generation to come the praises of the Lord.
So don't hide these scriptures from your children. Show them everything that God has done. Instill that fear in them. Instill that fear of God in them. Go ahead.
And his strength and his wonderful works that he had done.
And his strength and his wonderful works that he had done. Show them God's works so they can praise him. So they can fear him. Really go read, talking to them about Moses and what God did in Egypt. So they can really get that fear. Get that full detail. Not that Prince of Egypt stuff. I'm talking about the real nitty gritty. Let's go get something else. Ephesians chapter 6. Verse 1.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
Children are to obey their parents in the Lord. So it says righteously, meaning under the law of God, obey your parents. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'll say it anyway. If your parents say we out of food and we gotta eat, we gotta eat a little pork, that's when children say, Mom and Daddy, We ain't about under no circumstance supposed to eat pork. That's what mean when it say obey your parents in the Lord. Children are to obey their parents, those parents, righteous parents that are in the Lord. But let me hit another angle on that. I'm 31 years old. I don't live under my mother anymore. And my father's been gone for a long time. He passed away when I was little. Just because I'm older, does that mean I disrespect them? No. They still my parents. I don't agree with a lot of things that they did, but I will not disrespect them. I will honor them in the Lord. Okay? So now I want to hit on that. When I say honor them in the Lord, honor them under the commandments of God. So you understand, as a man or woman, that's still your parent, and you should respect them. Go ahead. Now you know what? I think that was all I wanted to hit on that. So the children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. That's the right way to do things. Obey your parent in the Lord. Hit Proverbs 6:20.
What did you have? No.
Hit Proverbs chapter 6, verse 20.
Proverbs 6, verse 20. My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother.
It says, my son, keep thy father's commandment. So it says, my son, keep thy father's commandments. The commandments your father followed, keep them too. That's how what the child mindset supposed to be is. The same commandment my father's keeping, those are commandments I'm supposed to keep. Remember, it's supposed to be passed on from generation to generation. And it says, and forsake not the law of thy mother. And don't forget your mother, because a lot of times, even young men have to understand, yes, she is a woman, but your mother, she's still the head over you. While you are under her, because if you disrespecting her, you're disrespecting your father. While you are in their house, even once you leave, that's still your mother. You may be a man. Let's hit Proverbs 23 and 22.
Proverbs 23, verse 22. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is
So
old.
it's the same thing. Respect your father, and despise not your mother when she is old. Don't think that just because she's older now, like you said, your role is still that you are still her son or daughter. So you honor your parents. You just honor your parents is a form of showing that you honor the Most High God. If you can't honor your parents, how can you honor God? How can you honor your Heavenly Father? So this goes out to men and women, young men and women who keeping the laws. Remember something: your parents may be your mother mainly. It may be that she is a woman and you are of age now to rule your own household, but that's still your mother. And your father is the same. Even though you ain't in his house no more, he's still your father. Still respect him. Respect him. Hit Proverbs 29:17. 29 and 17, Proverbs
29 and 13.
17.
Proverbs 29, verse 17. Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul.
It says, correct thy son, and he shall give you rest. A child that you don't correct, they're gonna give you hell. You gotta get on them young, put that fear in them. You gotta instill that commandment fear, and that fear to let them know you will whoop them. You will get on their case. You gotta let them know. If you don't correct them, imagine trying. You think you tough. You're tough now. You're bigger than them. But imagine being a man and try another grown man. This is your son trying to tussle with him because he done got so bullheaded and so high on himself. He don't want to hear you. He ain't trying to hear. We've all been there when you thought that you was actually a man, when you wasn't nothing but a child, and you would think remember you're getting older too. You ain't got time to be wrestling with no 20-something-year-old grown man. And you yourself is getting older. You don't want to be there. Correct them when they're young so you don't have to deal with that. You don't have to be throwing hands with your son or even your daughter. Because there's been cases with little girls that beat up their mamas. Beat up their daughter, tried to beat up their daddies, and someone was successful. So correct them when they're young. Read that again.
Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest.
Just correct him, and he will give you rest. You're supposed to be at peace about your child. When they old and gone off to live their own life, you're supposed to be at rest, knowing that they are good. I ain't got to worry about them. Know they wherever they at, they doing something righteous, or they at peace themselves. Go ahead.
Yeah, he shall give delight unto thy soul.
He gonna give delight to your soul, because your soul needs to be delighted. Because a soul that is not is bitter, angry. So let's get something. Let's move on. Get Genesis 8:21. Genesis 8:21.
Genesis 8, verse 21. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both the fowl and the cattle, and of beasts, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. And all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land. That
I'm sorry. Yeah, Genesis 8:21.
8:21.
I was trying to see. I'm looking there trying to see if I'm.
Genesis 8:21. And the Lord smelled the sweet Savior, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth.
What did it say? The imagination. Go ahead.
For the imagination of the man's heart is evil from his youth.
The imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. From your youth, the imagination of your heart is evil. It has to be guided in the right direction. I understand from our children. They only know what you allow them to see and what you teach them. So we have to remember, if we want rest, if we want them to live a long life, it starts with us correcting them and training them up in the way they should go. And also there's other angles to hit on this scripture too. Was it evil from his youth? The things we did in our past. The way we lived our life. But that's all I was saying. I want to hit on that angle. Read that last part again, from the youth.
For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth.
The imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Go ahead.
Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done.
Okay, now go to Sirach 30:12.
Sirach chapter 30, verse 12. Bow down his neck while he is young.
So bow down your child's neck while they are young. Go ahead.
And beat him on the sides while he is a child.
Beat him on the side, get them together. Go ahead. While he is a child. You can't do it. You can't just decide now that they are teenagers to get them together. Go ahead.
Lest he wax stubborn and be disobedient unto thee, and so bring sorrow to thine
I
heart.
was just talking about. When he wax old, when he get old, he gonna be stubborn. He or she gonna be stubborn. They're gonna be in their ways, and they're gonna think there's nothing you can tell them. So get them young. Get them in order young. Go ahead.
Chastise thy son and hold him to labor, lest his lewd behavior be an offense unto thee.
So it says, chastise them and hold them to labor. Your children should always be laboring. They should always be busy. School, after school, some kind of sport. After that, when they're at home, cleaning up the house, cut the grass, take care of the yard, whatever you need to be doing, they should be busy. Constantly busy. Give them no time to do nothing wicked. Go ahead.
Better is the poor, being sound and strong of constitution.
So that's it on that. Let's go to Proverbs 13:24. So remember in class, men must rule the household righteously. So remember this when it comes to your children. This is how they should be brought up. Go ahead. Proverbs 13:24.
Proverbs 13:24. He that spareth his rod hateth his son.
He that do not correct his son hates him. If you don't correct your son, you hate him. You don't want nothing good for him. You should, and you know what I'm saying, like when you whoop your child, it should not be because you just angry. You should whoop them to correct them. You should correct them because you love them. So if you don't correct them, you hate them. You ain't trying to. You don't want nothing good for them in life. You ain't worried about their relationship with God. Go ahead.
But he that loveth him chastening him betimes.
So, but a man that loves his child gonna get on them no matter how many times they have to do it. They gonna get on. Go to Proverbs 29:15. So a person that love their child gonna correct them. A person that don't, they hate them. The person that don't correct their son, they hate them. That's the plain and simple. Go ahead.
Proverbs 29:15. The rod and reproof give wisdom.
So that rod and that reproof give wisdom, that correction. You know, when we do wrong, the Most High chastises and afflicts us, and it gives us wisdom, and it gives us reproof. We know because that's rebuke. We know we did wrong, give us correction, and now we got some new wisdom. Now we know better. Go ahead.
But a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame.
So a child that don't get corrected gonna bring his mother shame, sorrow, pain. Growing up, you always hear your mother. People will talk bad about those mothers whose sons end up in prison, and that mother, that's her shame. It's embarrassing. So we have this child left to himself who ain't got nobody, no guidance, no man big around to correct him, or maybe he do, but he still ain't getting no correction. He ain't being taught right. Left to himself, he says he bringing his mother to shame. So think about that. The mother gives birth to the son and daughter, right? She's the one. That's why she's used in that, because she's the one who nurtures them as babies. She's the one who labored with them, brought them out, and to see them go down a dark path, it's gonna be her shame, it's gonna be her pain. So what we gotta do to prevent that? Early correction. That's what you gotta do. Early correction. Don't be ashamed to just let them have it. Righteously though. Don't be beating up on your children just because you're angry. All right, let's get to Rock 3. We're going to start at verse 1.
Sirach chapter 3, verse 1. Hear me, your father, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be saved.
So it says, hear your father, children, and do this, that you may be saved. Do what God is telling you in these scriptures, so that you can live a safe life. That means safe from all hurt, harm, and safety for your children. To keep safe from your children bring you hurt and harm. Okay? Go ahead.
For the Lord had given the father honor over the children, and hath confirmed the authority of the mothers over the sons.
So the children are supposed to honor the father. The Lord said the Lord have given the father honor over the children. I mean, he's the highest in the household, so the children ought to honor him. And read that last part again. And have confirmed.
And hath confirmed the authority of the mothers over the sons.
Well, I just told y'all. Men often tend to think that just because you're older now, you don't have to honor your mother. You know, she's still, like I said, again, once I put that in there, giving them, the mother still has authority over the son. That's her son. Go ahead.
Whoso honoreth his father maketh an atonement for his sins.
So you honor your father. That's your atonement for your sins. You showing your father honor. That's atonement for sins. Go ahead.
And he that honoreth his mother is as one that layeth up treasure.
Go ahead.
Whoso honoreth his father shall have joy of his own children.
So that's something for children to remember too. If you honor your father, you're gonna have joy of your own children. It's a generational thing. It must be passed on. You want to have that honor for your father, and then have that same love given back from your children. Go ahead.
And when he maketh his prayer, he shall be heard.
That's how when a man like that make his prayer, he should be heard. The Most High will honor a man that honors his father, and even give him that same blessing with his own children. His children gonna honor him. Go ahead.
He that honoreth his father shall have a long life, and he that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort to his mother.
Verse to what we just talked about. He that honors his father shall have a long life. That's how you get a long life, because you honor your father. You honor your earthly father, you honor your heavenly father. He that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort to his mother. But your mother ain't never got to be embarrassed about you. She can be proud of you because you are a righteous young man or woman. Think about it. A shameless daughter is an embarrassment to her mother, right? Because people gonna say, if the daughter is like that, the mother must be the same way. So you want your daughter to carry herself righteously, because people will say, oh, that's where she got it from, her mom. Go ahead.
He that feareth the Lord will honor his father, and will do service unto his parents as to his masters.
So he said, he that feareth the Lord will honor his father, and will do service unto his parents as his masters. We get into the point, what is the role of the child? What is the role of the children in the household? In a righteous household, what is the role of the children? So your parents are your masters. The parents are the masters. Go ahead.
Honor thy father and mother, both in word and in deed.
So you're supposed to honor them with your lips and with the things you do. The children are supposed to honor their parents with their lip, with their mouth, and with their actions. Go ahead.
That a blessing may come upon thee.
That's it. Go ahead.
From them.
So the blessing may come upon you from them. So when your parents, they gonna do right by you because you're doing right by them. Go ahead.
For the blessing of the father established the household, the houses of children, but the curse of the mother rooteth out foundations.
Go ahead.
Glory not in the dishonor of thy father, for thy father's dishonor is no glory unto thee.
Read that verse 9 one more time.
Verse 9, for the blessing of the father established the houses.
So the blessing of the father established the houses of children. Read that one more time. I'm sorry. Cut you off.
For the blessing of the father established the houses of children.
For the blessing of the father established the houses of children. The Most High, the blessing of the father being a righteous man, keeping the commandment, that's going to establish the house of the children, because the children are going to follow that example for their own households. Go ahead.
But the curse of the mother rooteth out foundations.
The curse of the mother. When the mother is in rulership over the household, under her, all the foundation fall apart. because that's not how the household is meant to be ran. The mother is not supposed to be the head of the household. So when the father is in full rulership of his household and leading it righteously, that trickles down to the next household for those children when they get their house, and they see how to lead the household righteously. But when the mother is the head of the household, all the foundation messed up. The daughters don't respect men, the men and the sons, they don't respect women. It's not gonna work out. The foundation is destroyed. Read that one more time, Mark. Verse 9.
For the blessing of the father established the houses of the children, but the curse of the mother rooteth out foundations.
The curse of the mother rooted out foundations. Go verse 10.
Glory not in the dishonor of thy father, for thy father's dishonor is no glory unto thee.
Verse 11. Go ahead.
For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father, and a mother in dishonor is a reproach to the children.
Go ahead.
My son, help thy father in his age, and grieve him not as long as he liveth.
So it says, help your father in his age, and grieve him not as long as he lives. I mean, your father, as long as your father is living, honor him. Help him. As he's getting older, help him out. You know, he's starting to get old. He's losing his youth. Still honor him. Go ahead.
And if his understanding fail, have patience with him, and despise him not when thou art in thy full strength.
So like I just said, have patience with your father, because the father's gonna get old. And now when the children, are in their full strength, have patience with your parents. Because your mind start to go a little bit or something like that. Go ahead.
For the relieving of thy father shall not be forgotten, and instead of sins it shall be added to build thee up.
All right, let's go to Sirach 30, starting 1.
Sirach 30 verse 1. He that loveth his son causeth him oft to feel the
So
rod,
you love his son, cause him off to the rod. Go ahead.
that he may have joy of him in the end.
That he may have joy of him. So you want him to feel the rod, because as he gets older, when it's all said and done, you want to have joy with your children. You want to be able to dwell with them in peace, and you want them to live a long, prosperous life. Go ahead.
He that chastiseth his son shall have joy in him, and shall rejoice of him among his acquaintances.
So when you have joy, when you correct your son, and your son is in full, and your son has that subjective spirit towards you, you're gonna have. Read that again.
He that chastiseth his son shall have joy in him, and shall rejoice of him among his acquaintances.
Well, you're gonna rejoice about him, among your acquaintances. You're gonna be talking about him. You're gonna be your son is gonna be somebody you're gonna look at. It's gonna be a joyful thing to talk about your son. Go ahead.
He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy.
When you teach your son, you grieving the enemy, because you don't want you don't want the enemy to come up against your son. So you're gonna teach him. You're gonna teach him how to deal with the enemy. Go ahead.
And before his friends he shall rejoice of him.
Go ahead.
Though his father die, yet he is as though he were not dead.
So even when it should be to the point where even when you pass away, your son's supposed to be like your second coming. Like he's supposed to be so righteous, like it's like you still here, because he's supposed to carry that same spirit you had. That's how righteous you're supposed to be. Will pass down to him and your daughter. Go ahead.
For he hath left one behind him that is like himself.
Go ahead.
While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him, and when he died, he was not sorrowful.
So it's supposed to be while you was living, you're supposed to be rejoicing in your son. You're supposed to be training them up, getting them right. And when you die, you are not gonna be sorrowful. You're not gonna be like, you're not gonna feel like you failed your child, and you're not gonna be worried about them. You know that you raised them up right, and they're gonna make good decisions. You know that God is the God of their life. So that's how when you pass, you're gonna be at peace. Go ahead.
He left behind him He left behind him an avenger against his enemies.
Somebody that's gonna make your enemies even feel bad. He left somebody about you. You supposed to leave somebody behind you, your son. That even when your enemies see him, like I ain't gonna. They can't do nothing but respect him. They ain't gonna be able to do nothing but respect him. How righteous he is because you raised him that way. Go ahead.
And one that shall requite kindness to his friends. He that maketh too much of his son shall bind up his wounds, and his bowels will be troubled at every cry.
So, also understand there's levels to it. Don't make too much of your children. Don't boast them too much. Like, understand. Don't let them get away with sin. Don't be so proud of them that you think that they can't. That you don't examine them. You don't question what they do, their actions. Don't look at them like they just can't mess up. Be on their head about it. Go ahead.
Verse 8. And a horse not broken becometh headstrong, and a child left to himself will be willful.
Go ahead.
Conquer thy child, and he shall make thee afraid. Play with him, and he will bring thee to heaviness.
That's what I was just talking about. He said, a horse not broken becometh headstrong. So you gotta break them. Gotta get them in obedience when they're young. When they get older, you ain't gonna be able to deal with them. Go ahead.
Laugh not with him, lest thou have sorrow with him, and lest thou gnash thy teeth in the end. Give him no liberty in his youth, and wink not at his fathers.
Give him no liberty in his youth. Meaning, it's not a democracy. You rule your house. What you say goes. Read that one part again. Give him no liberty in his youth.
Give him no liberty in his youth, and wink not at his fathers.
And wink not at his fathers. Correct him. Don't just be like, man, I'm gonna let that go. Correct him. Go ahead.
Bow down his neck while he is young, and beat him on the sides while he is a child, lest he wax stubborn and be disobedient unto thee, and so bring sorrow to thine heart.
All right, let's get So that's it. That's what I want to hit on that. So, in conclusion to the role of the children in the household, the role of the children is simply put to be in subjection. That's the role of the child in your house. They don't got no liberty. It's not, your household is not a democracy. They are to be ruled righteously, but they are to be in full subjection. That's the role of children. Okay, let's get into the role one. The role of the man. Hit 1 Timothy 3.
Who?
The role of the man. Get 1 Timothy 3. Read, start at verse 1.
First Timothy chapter 3 verse 1. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desire a good work.
So if a man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. That's honorable. Go ahead.
A bishop then must be blameless,
A bishop must be blameless,
the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach.
So what is a bishop? A bishop is a leader in Israel. A bishop is a leader. So this is the role of a man even in his household. You must be blameless, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, and apt to teach. These are qualities that you must have. This is what you must do as the ruler of your household. Sober, of good behavior. Go ahead.
Not given to wine, no striker, not greedy to filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetous.
So you're supposed to be patient. Not no striker. Meaning you don't hit your wife. And don't just be beating just like this. Don't be beating on your children just because you had a bad day. No, you can't be out here getting drunk. Go ahead.
One that ruleth well his own house.
You gotta rule it well, your own house. Go ahead.
Having his children in subjection with all gravity.
Having your children in subjection. So the role of the children is to be in subjection. That's their role. That's how children survive, to be in subjection. This how a man should be though. A man should be sober. A man should be not given to wine. He got good behavior, given to hospitality. These are the traits he must carry. Is that verse 5? Go ahead, read verse 5.
For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God?
So understand, if a man cannot rule his own house, how can he take care of the church of God? So this is how you rule your own house. But this is how a man is supposed to carry himself in his house and in the church of God, which is the nation of Israel. Here, 1 Corinthians 14. Pass out the communion. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, read verse 40.
1 Corinthians 14, verse 40. Let all things be done decently and in order.
So all things must be done decently in order. That's a message to everyone who says, so my whole class I've been talking about, I talk about the role of the wife, the role of the children, the role of the man. And a man is to rule his house righteously, not like a lion. He's supposed to understand affliction. He understands when his house is under affliction, he understands that it may be that he has sinned against God, or that his faith is being tried to see where he stands. So let all things be done decently in order. This is how this also applies to a man ruling his household. Rule your household decently and in order. Let's get jump on chapter 11. Read verse 3.
1 Corinthians 11, verse 3. But I will have you know that
Understand this. Most High will have you know. Go ahead.
That the head of every man is Christ.
The head of every man in Israel is Christ. So that means you got to do as Christ would do. Go ahead.
And the head of the woman is the man.
The head of the woman is the man. Go ahead.
And the head of Christ is God.
The head of Christ is God. So the man has to understand, if your head is Christ, you need to love Christ. You need to love your wife as Christ loved the church. So treat your woman, you have to treat your wife with love. Go ahead. What is it on that one? Yeah, that's it on there. Read it again.
1 Corinthians 11 and 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
Yeah, the head of every man is Christ. Go ahead.
And the head of the woman is the man. And the head of Christ is God.
This is the order of the household. That's how a man's house should be. The head of his house is supposed to be God. Christ, then himself. That's the order. Let's get 1 Kings chapter 2. First Kings chapter 2, start at 2. So, what it was saying is, for this, what a man, the simple duties of these are the simple duties of a man, but they cover a lot. They cover a lot, and if you can follow that understanding, your household should be fine. The man is to rule. These are the instructions. First Kings chapter 2, start at verse 2.
1 Kings 2 and 2. I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man.
This is David talking to Solomon. He let him know he's about to pass away. And it's the same way we would do it like we've been talking about all lessons. Same way we do with our sons, teaching them. David's telling him, I'm about to pass away. So here's some instructions for you that I'm going to leave you with. Go ahead.
And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways.
So these are the duties of a man. Keep the charge of the Lord thy God, walk in his ways. Go ahead.
to keep his statutes and his commandments, and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself.
So a man's supposed to know the laws, statutes, and commandments, and he's supposed to follow them, so that whatever he do, he will prosper in. And that's even in leading his household. A man of understanding will lead his household righteously. He's not going to have multiple wives. He's not going to have, and we talking about here in Israel today. I'm talking about why we here in captivity. He's not going to change up God's doctrines. He's going to follow the script commandments all the way through wholeheartedly. He's in full subjection to the law of God. He ain't gonna change up nothing. He ain't gonna bring it, and he's going to rule his household with love, with the love of God. Get Matthew 12:29.
What was that?
Matthew 12:29. You know what? I'm sorry. That's actually it on that. Did y'all have anything y'all want to hit on? Go ahead and hit that. Matthew 12:29.
Matthew 12, verse 29. Or else, how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house?
So, first thing to understand, how can one enter into a strong man's house and first he binds a strong man? You have to be strong. You have to follow David, what David was telling Solomon. Keep the charge of the Most High God. Can't nobody enter into your household. Can't nobody break down your house if you keep in the charge of the Most High God. Follow his laws and his statutes. The way to bind the strong man is for the strong man himself to forget the law of God. That's how you rule over your household. That's how you keep your house safe.